Shut up and sit down.
It's an all-American classic combination with the V8 Ford Mustang around Daytona's famous high banks and infield on the road course for round 4 of the ChampCar iRacing series in 2023. What a circuit, what a 1-hour race before us for round 4 of this championship this year with some great prizes on the line. And to cover all of it live here tonight, David Haynes with Devin Peters, Michael Derby on the cameras. Thanks for joining us, Devin. What a favorite circuit for fans, racers all around the world. It's got its own song, and it produces great racing with some slipstreaming as well.
It's such a beautiful facility, and the home of all the classics of American racing. And I can tell you, the first NASCAR race I ever went to, hard to beat. Seeing all that V8 power rumbling by, screaming by, as I recall it. And we're going to see some of that tonight with this Mustang on display, doing some left turns, but also doing some right turns around this fine road course.
Yep, tonight's combination with the Ford Mustang FR500S. It's of its era, and the drivers often find it very engaging. It's got just enough horsepower to get you in trouble, but not an infinite amount. It's not 500, it's a little more in the mid 300 range. Certainly, it can be a challenge to drive, but rewarding at the same time. And the suspension is a little agricultural. Certainly, the Ford Mustang's a car that's become a little more refined as the years have gone on. This is a pretty prime era for it, though. 4.6-litre V8, 6-speed manual transmission, and the tyres are still relatively skinny on it too.
Yeah, and some of the drivers are showing off some of the challenge of getting around here with that leaf spring straight axle. I don't think it's a leaf spring, but it's straight axle rear end. It'll get away from you if you're not gentle in your application of the throttle pedal around here. And so I think you saw back-to-back Mark McCormick and Josh Soto, who are 1 and 2 in the qualifying right now, parked the car after having a wiggle on the second horseshoe, and then another couple drivers pointing it the wrong way with some problems in the first horseshoe there.
Yeah, so easily done. As we're at the end of this qualifying session, drivers are pushing for everything they can to try to improve their grid position. Let's have a look at the championship points after 3 rounds, and they've been all very exciting races, all of them live, and all of our future races live as well. And it's Joshua Soto up top at the moment, 124 points, just 2 ahead of Alex Albert. And then that top 10 completed with Mark McCormick, Tim Wire, Andrew Pilota, Ian Giebler, Kyle Robertson, Max Lupfer, Nick Love, and Perry Elwood.
Yeah, and it's no surprise to see the 3 folks with wins in 1 each in our first 3 races. That's Josh, Alex, and Mark leading the way. Those wins going to be really important to hold in the championship, but it's looking more competitive than ever up at the front, I gotta say.
Yeah, and this is another big grid race where anything could happen, and we've got all of our key drivers in attendance as well. 3 minutes left on this qualifying. The sun will get a little lower over Daytona, and then as we head into our race, the lights will come on as the sun sets. Be 1 pit stop in the race as well. See how that all plays out. But at the moment, our top 10 in qualifying: Mark McCormick, Joshua Soto, Alex Albert, John Hurley, Nick Love, Dennis Federation, Sean Saputra, Tim Wire, Tony Alfano, Orlando Herald.
I kind of have a feeling that we're seeing a little bit more spread in the qualifying times than we might actually see in race pace right now. few drivers I'd say have been really working hard in the last 15 minutes or so to pair up and run together in twos to try and get that extra draft, leapfrogging each other every other lap, and kind of making sure that they're getting the most out of the banking. These cars, big boxy things of the era, do create a pretty big hole as they're heading around, and with the FR 500S series, they're only around 300 horsepower, so they do benefit pretty significantly from the draft around here.
Yeah, it's a matter of the speeds that get reached as well, and the length of that straight, particularly from the bus stop around on the banked NASCAR turns 3 and 4, and then underneath all of the stands at the tri-oval. It's a really long high-speed run, and the longer you're pushing through that air, the more the car behind has a chance to close in, and we can see those drafting packs even on the road course, as famous as they are on the full oval and on the banking.
So Josh Soto and Alex Albert are still out trying to put in fresh laps. I'm also seeing Nick Love and Tim Wire and Tony Alfano, who are all kind of within arm's reach of that number one place, that are out there trying to put something together. I think that we're following along right now with Nick Love and Charles Kowalczyk as those Love racing cars try to find their way into the top 10. Charles Kowalczyk currently qualified in 16th place, trying to find a little bit here in the last 40 seconds.
And he is finding just a little bit, but I think a bit of time loss in the first sector of the lap might hinder him. Might get around to have just one more lap, though. So Kowalczyk bumps to 12th with that one, and might be able to go a little bit further. Great representation out of the Love Racing guys, and they do love racing, and so I think we've got 4 of them at a minimum representing tonight, with man himself, Nick Love.
Take a look at that driving suit. And you see what Charles Kowalczyk is driving in. He'll need a new pair of underpants. The ones he's currently wearing as he's driving around today.
That's one of the corners with the throttle application's got to be very, very precise, isn't it? Out of those slow horseshoe bends in the infield. And we've just seen a great example of it. Checkered flag out on qualifying. Everyone going past the line now, seeing the end of their qualifying session, and Kowalczyk will be one of the last drivers around looking to improve. In theory, as the sun gets a bit lower, there might be a bit more grip out there with a cooling track.
Yeah, sun coming down, it always makes a big difference in the simulator. Speaking of, if you haven't driven this car in a while, you should load it back up and give it a shot. Some fresh updates to the tires, and the car is feeling really, really good right now. Did some laps in the practice round, and really kind of feels lively everywhere. I've always loved this car, but it's feeling better than ever for sure.
Is that why they call it a live rear axle?
Hi.
Probably not.
Probably not. But you can definitely feel it getting, feeling heavy in the corners, kind of doing all the good stuff. I have this wonder if Charles Kowalczyk is afraid of the yellow line right now, or if he's, I think he's gone and taken a shortcut through the bus stop maybe a little bit.
Certainly no drafting help for him, and he's going to be one of the last drivers to cross this timing line in qualifying and take the checkered flag.
In fact, he takes the pit lane entrance, gives that a shot. Pitting and getting into the pits effectively is going to be key here today, too.
Always tough on these oval-style pit entries, isn't it? Famously challenging to get down from speed of the banking to the pit lane speed limit here, which is at 50 or 55? It's 55 miles an hour.
And
which still feels pretty fast by our ChampCar standards, but when you're trying to slow down to that from, 130 or so.
Mm-hmm. I'm just enjoying Will Nonemaker making sure the sponsors get some camera time here, as he does a parade lap as the last guy out on the track in qualifying. Very well done.
Yeah, another combination of drivers that you often see around the circuits of the USA in ChampCar competition, represented here in the iRacing series. Great turnout of them. Tim Wire was definitely painted on fixture last year, and he's managed to energize a lot of his teammates to come along this year, which is great to see.
Oh, and just a beautiful amount of Mustangs sitting there. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, 5 of them is good and 35 of them is great. That's what we've got lining up for the grid of the 4th round of ChampCar iRacing series in 2023. Now, we'll try to see if we can pull up a grid, but if we can't, I can tell you, Mark McCormick will be sharing the front row with Joshua Soto. Second row will be Alex Albert and John Hurley, already sounding very spicy up there. And Nick Love, Dennis Federation, Sean Saputra, Justin Hall, Tim Wire, and Tony Alfano is the top 10. That looks right. It doesn't have lap times, but that's the correct order that you are going to see on the grid. And then Orlando Harrell, Kyle Robertson, Charles Kowalczyk, Garrett Meyer, Lee Morleman, Mark Kruger, Jay Safianek, Darren McNeil Jr., Davis Trask, and Bowie Suen to 20th. And then, what did we say? Will Nonamaker in 21st?
Yeah, it sounds like he's behind the wheel today, putting in a solid 204 there. Aaron Thorpe, 22nd. David Warden, 23rd. Charles C. Brown, 24th. Michael Thorne holding up that Canadian flag in 25th. Alan Wells in 26th. Dustin Besh in 27th. Andre Jameson in 28th.
And then Shane Cameron in 29th as Devon tries to stay alive. James Smith, Ben Sandberg, David Palermo, Greg Vandervert, Bill Salen, and Patrick Cummins to 35th. They are a beautiful looking grid as they line up on the back straight, ready for the formation lap, truncated formation lap, to take them to the green flag. 1 hour of racing with Mustangs at Daytona.
Yeah, and some of the drivers leaving with little puffs of smoke. Easy to do in first gear.
Yeah, you say 300-ish horsepower. It doesn't rev super duper high, so by the nature of how physics works, that means there's got to be quite a bit of torque to be getting that number. And you notice it in the road car gearbox first gear that doesn't really get much use at all in racing conditions. Same for the road car sixth gear that doesn't get a whole lot of use, but might hear on the speeds in the draft and on the banking. It's mainly a third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear kind of game with these Mustangs, and they are a beautiful sight. Too wide on the banking coming towards the start of this one. So once again, on that front row, Mark McCormick, the defending champion, Joshua Soto, the championship leader, and they will come down towards turn 1 at speed. Pace car's in, the green flag's ready, and they get to that start area, and Mark McCormick is eager to get this one underway. And his bluey Ford Mustang will lead them all down towards turn 1. He gets to use the full width of the track, the full racing line. The track's pretty cold. The tires are pretty cold as well. And how much do you want to risk in turn 1 of a 1 hour race? The driver's pretty good up the front of the field, but that was a great start from Mark McCormick. Alex Albert also able to get past Joshua Soto and into second place. Now they all fold into the infield.
Yeah, a little bit of drama at the back of field. We got both Salen's cars facing the wrong way, as well as that looks like Bowie Suen in the green car facing the wrong way. So a little bit of drama, but I don't think anyone managed to write one off. Just checking up all the way throughout the field, people getting tagged, and those cars will all limp back around. Luckily, we have fast repair in the ChampCar iRacing series, so these people will continue on.
And of course, a fixed setup, all of our drivers racing these cars with the same setup on, and that means starting with 7 gallons. So there's plenty of room in the tank to add more fuel if you want to stop earlier, if you need to stop early and still make it all the way home. But typically, you're going to see our leading drivers run deeper into this race before they elect to make their pit stop. On the banking, the slipstreaming and high speed closing up the front of our field. Alex Albert and Joshua Soto in pursuit of Mark McCormick, not willing to let him get away with the lead of this race. And Nick Love in fourth, breaking very deep into the bus stop chicane and managing to pull it up quite well, actually.
And we've just seen Tim Wire have a little moment there in the chicane on the way out. Sorry, I guess we're seeing it on the broadcast cameras, but sorry, on the commentary cameras, not the broadcast cameras.
So almost a lap completed here. Looks like an 8-car runaway at the lead of the field. They're not letting Mark McCormick get anywhere. Joshua Soto looks to challenge down the inside into turn number 1. And Albert braking very deep around the outside. Getting it a little sideways as he tries to get the power down, but does defend his second position. Love, Hurley, and Federation able to catch that slipstream and close in on our leaders that lap, but a bit of a gulf forming between this top 6 and Orlando Herald back in 7th place.
Yeah, and they're really busy back there fighting over 6th, 7th place. That's Tony Alfano and Sean Sputra that are too wide behind this leading pack. And a couple more behind them. That was Justin Hall and Charles Kowalczyk that were too wide as well, going through the horseshoe. Things calmed down a little bit, of course. It's 1 wide through the kink in these things.
Yep, a lot of mass, not a lot of grip, and that makes for some pretty exciting driving and some pretty exciting racing. There's a bunch of other drivers that have caught back up to this group, and they're not even on the banking yet, which really closes these packs together.
John Hurley trying to hold on to the lead pack. He's got Dennis Federation even behind him. They're just trying to hold on to those front 3. Those front 3 did have a lot of pace, set some real fast times through the first turn, and I think your ability to get it slowed down for turn number 1 is really critical to the overall lap in these things. Hurley has a good run, though, through the bus stop, and so does Federation, and they'll be enjoying the draft all the way down into the turn 1.
Yep, your top 6 looking very racy at the moment. Pack racing at Daytona, and Soto and Albert, I think, pushing each other along a little bit, closing in now on Mark McCormick. You see exactly what the effect of the slipstream is. Soto pulls out to the outside. Albert elects to bump Mark McCormick, and they're going to go side by side down into turn 1 this time. There can be some good grip around the outside. That's where Soto was gone, but he just hasn't found the traction that Mark McCormick's had on the rubbered-in racing line. Now, Albert under a bit of pressure from Nick Love, who just rolls out of it as they come to the first horseshoe.
Yeah, and track stayed carrying over as if these races were back-to-back, or these sessions were back-to-back today, so plenty of rubber put down by these guys over the last few hours of warm-up and qualifying.
That group behind, absolute excitement as well. Justin Hall's worked his way from 11th to 7th, and Kowalczyk looks like he's also come forward a couple positions. So certainly exciting racing for that next group that takes us down to 16th place. Dustin Besh, Charles Brown, and Kyle Robertson are all battling over 18th, and the same as some of the other positions further back, like Alan Wells and Will Nonamaker battling for 25th. So good racing so far.
Yeah, battles up and down the field from the last cars on the lead lap all the way forward.
A bit of early strategy and chess being played with the lead, though, because I've seen a couple times here Joshua Soto, Alex Albert carrying a lot of speed, catching Mark McCormick and deciding they don't want to pass him just yet. They want to sit in this position. And of all of the cars in our championship this year, this one's got to be the thirstiest. And therefore it has long pit stops with a lot of fuel. You gain the most if you can save a little bit.
Yeah, and we'll see them all get stacked back up here again as the guys behind kind of run 3/4 throttle through the big hole getting punched up in the front. And of course that's keeping the back half of this lead pack in the picture as it all tightens up going down into turn one. That's John Hurley sticking his nose up the inside somewhat inadvertently. I think he was trying to dodge Nick Love as they were getting to the apex, and actually coming out of the pits just ahead of them is some lap traffic in the form of Andre Jameson. He's staying wide off the racing line, and
really wide off the racing line.
That's one way to make sure you don't get in the way.
I think one of the things you find with this car is long braking distances. It means that they're braking sort of from the banking before they then come down on towards the apron that leads towards turn one, and that transition off the banking can upset the cars in the middle of the braking zone, and Hurley might have just found that as the whole field compressed in towards turn one. Out of the infield though, and onto the banking again in this run that leads them around Daytona, NASCAR 1 and 2, and then towards the bus stop chicane.
Federici and Hurley look like they need to learn a little bit from the guys ahead, and it seems like they're getting out of turn number 7 there a little bit better, putting the power down a little bit better. There's some big bumps as you were kind of alluding to on the way in, but also on the way up onto the banking. Oh, and Federici sends it. That was a nice move. Gets it slowed down. He's going to pay for it a little bit on the exit, but carried a lot of speed. And Federici it's kind of neat to see him out this season, spending a little bit more time on the sim. I imagine he's spending a lot of time in the garage, though. He's with Hungry Geckos. That's that E30 that lost that corner of the car to that stalled Mustang that rode Atlanta there. So he'll be spending a lot of time on the sim, I imagine, until they get that car back together.
And can those guys get back to the lead? Hurley maybe pushing Federici along a little bit, and your top 4 nose to tail and on the brakes into turn 1. Looks like Federici and Hurley navigate that well and looking to go with the leading group here. More lap times are going to come in, and it looks like Hall 2 laps in a row has been quicker than the leaders and might be able to catch them. That's a Florida man with a little home ground advantage, but Joshua Soto also Club Florida.
Mm-hmm. And Justin Hall is pulling along behind him. A couple other hungry racers. That looks like Charles Kowalczyk and Mark Kruger would like to follow with him.
I'm sure they would. This is certainly one of the cars where you can wear down the tyres being a little too aggressive, though. The car starts off a bit slidey, and all of that horsepower can put a lot of heat and damage through particularly the rear tyres in those traction zones out of the slow corners.
Yeah, very easy to do in these things, and have definitely seen big swings in lap time and in relative performance, going from the first 10 minutes of a stint to the next 20 in these kind of cars. So it'll be interesting to see who's got it when it counts.
Yeah, you've got it, the temptations to lean on it and maybe use it up a little earlier than you might need it, because certainly those lap times sort of in the middle of the race around the in lap and the out lap can be very critical in a pit stop race like this.
And Alex Albert gives a little push to Soto before backing off, and Soto gets up real nice and close to McCormick. And it stacks up behind Alex Albert. Yikes, that got close for a moment there. Federici was up the inside of Hurley. Maybe Hurley was up the outside of, Love. 3 dark cars back there catching me out. But yeah, so things are getting tight again up at the front.
Yeah, you got to be careful looking for love in the dark. Justin Hall's, in his pursuit of the lead, has just had a scruffy lap this lap just gone, so he's dropped a tiny bit further back towards Kowalczyk.
Oh, and Kowalczyk has got to be a little frustrated right now. He's singing the Blue Flag song, I think, because Andre Jameson, a lap down, is not given any quarter in this battle. as Kowalczyk tries to find his way around. And Jameson did have some decent pace in the qualifier. It wasn't far off. So Kowalczyk will have to get a good run. He does get a pretty good run here off of 7. We'll see if he's able to turn that into a clean run into the bus stop here.
He's down at the yellow line, the low line on the banking, and Jameson looks like he might have had a horror gear shift just there.
Yeah, these things, being age patterns are easy to mess up. So, either that or, he heard us talking about him on the broadcast. But he's passed by Tony Alfano and Davis Trask, the next 2 runners there in the field, as they make some nice moves on him into the bus stop. And the whole pack's actually coming by him now. He's got Orlando Harrell, and that looks like Mark Kruger coming up behind too. Whole big group of guys that have been kind of pacing together, pushing on the banking too. And they're 3 wide coming into the tri-oval. This is like the real NASCAR.
Yeah, it's good like that. These cars do punch a big, ugly hole in the air. So that slipstream can be worth quite a lot. And from a decent distance back, maybe more like a 1.5 seconds than 1 second.
Ooh. And Harrell and Kruger got real close together, tapped each other coming out of turn number 2 there. But they were able to keep it together. I think Harrell lifted out and gave the spot to Kruger rather than pushing the issue. As we get that fun look at the front tire as they come through the kink and keep on racing. And sun rapidly starting to set. Luckily they got good set of lights out here, so shouldn't be an issue, especially once the headlights are on as well.
Yeah, the cars have got headlights and so does the track, so in combination, no dramas at all, but what it does create is a beautiful sunset backdrop to this racing. Top 6 still all together as they go through the banking, but behind them I think is where you're seeing more positional change.
Yeah, and the top 6 are kind of running nose astern. Meanwhile, Harrell is fighting tooth and nail with Andre Jameson and Mark Kruger. Jameson still a lap down, but Harrell trying to navigate his way, and Kruger gets it a little wrong through the bus stop. He's going to pay for that, and I think Harrell's going to take it all the way around the outside. 3 wide into turn number 3. This is fun stuff to watch. A little dramatic. Getting side drafting. 15 minutes in. Someone tell these guys.
Yeah, it's certainly something. Harrell's got the speed, no doubt. Jameson's found a good chunk of side draft somewhere in the middle of that. 3 wide as they cross the start-finish line, and down in towards turn 1, Jameson goes in very deep. So does Kruger.
And I think Harrell's actually done it best of all 3. He's holding the inside. Let's see if Kruger knows he's there. Oh, real tight. Oh, and real deep there again from Kruger. They're just having a heck of a time. You can see, though, the pace differential between these guys, they're really close together, even though Jameson had that little drama on lap 1 that put him a lap down. He's mixing it up, and just like any Champ Car race, there's always fun to be had, no matter if you're battling for the win or battling for the end of the top 10.
And with that, Tim Wire has caught them.
Yeah, and Tim Wire did get caught up in that first lap stuff as well. He's managed to stay on the lead lap, didn't have to take a tow, but he, despite getting caught up in it, didn't actually take any panel damage by the looks of things. So that car's still looking nice and pristine and critical around a track like this where there are such long open throttle sections. Keep that aero smooth. I like the sort of simple paint job that Orlando Harrell's got. Oh, and that's gone all kinds wrong for Andre. I hope he rejoins safe. Wow, that was close. Well, at least that's that problem dealt with for that group of guys, and they can kind of gather themselves up and maybe get nose to tail for a little while. Traffic will be a factor during this race. 35 starters, and we've got about 5 that are already a lap down, and others that are sort of trailing off the back end.
Far too close to I-95 for traffic to not be a problem.
Well, that is a ride home. I want to say we were there in 2004 when it was a rain delay, and the race started late, and I think we got out of the track at like 4 in the morning, at 85 miles an hour all the way home. It's pretty wild. Bumper to bumper.
At the lead, the headlights have just come on, and the battle is still alive in a 6-way fight for the race lead. I get the feeling that there is a group of drivers here willing to just let McCormick lead this one for the moment. Soto gets a good run back out onto the banking and immediately just parks it and just sits underneath the rear wing of Mark McCormick. Where is Nick Love gone?
He's disappeared for a while. Oh no, and he's been disconnected. So I don't know what happened to the internet there, maybe a power outage on his end, but yeah, we've lost Nick Love, and that's going to hurt. Nick Love's been having a pretty solid season. He was currently 8th in the points, and he will have some drop weeks to help balance out issues like that, but that's going to be a bit of a heartbreaker because he managed to get through the early stages pretty clean.
It's a real shame for him and a real shame for us as well, because we've lost one car from this, and Hurley, who's now in 5th, has had a bad run through the bus stop. Looks like he picked up a slowdown penalty for cutting one of the corners. And it drops him away from the slipstream in this leading pack, which is where you want to be. Marishan having a different line breaking in towards turn number 1 than the others, maybe spooking them a little bit as he dives in there with a lot of speed, but it's the top 4 under 1 second right now.
Yeah, Hurley's going to be praying that those guys get a little bit feisty here as we get closer to halfway. Maybe start fighting a little bit for track position, because he's going to be feeling the pain of no draft here soon if they don't. And Hurley, a long-time driver in the series, lots of real car experience, but lots of sim racing experience too. Been doing pretty well around the series over the last few years. And he won this race in real life, so he knows how to get around the track.
So interesting, keeping an eye on our top 4, but there are lots of other cars running and battling, like Alfano and Trask, who's been a big mover, by the way, starting from 19th and now running in 9th, and Kruger dropped off. Herald now battling with Wire.
Yeah, Kruger and Wire are very close. I think, Herald, or Wire rather, has the run. He's getting the side draft around the outside. This is classic stuff here. Very sports car. And Wire's managing it very nicely. Stucking in tight while he's behind, and then popping it out wide once he doesn't want to give the draft back. Oh, it's too wide on the entry. That's always sketchy. Manages to hold on to it. Both of them getting a little sideways in the braking zone, but Wire grabs that spot and will not let go. So his recovery drive continues on. And now he's only 1, maybe 2 spots behind where he qualified. He qualified 9th. He's running 11th now. And he'll keep fighting his way towards the front. Ahead of them, one of our early hard chargers, Davis Trask, running in 9th behind Tony Alfano. We were just talking about those two battling, and they got close going into turn 1. Trask up 10 spots from his 19th place qualifying position. So a fast learner, seeing what's going on ahead. and taking advantage off the start too.
Those two in the horseshoe, both getting a little wiggly as they try to put some power down, and Trask hitting that exit curb that can sometimes straighten the car up a little bit. One of the more recent iRacing updates to this car, I think, gives you the ability to paint those wheels, and most people are still on the sort of silver chrome, but Trask has gone police interceptor spec on that, I think.
Yeah, those aren't Steelies, but they are sort of matte black, looking good. They gave these things a whole new art update, so on board looks real nice, and the car just in general looking a lot prettier than it has before.
Headlights, taillights got a bit of work as well.
Yeah, and it really shows, especially when you're running it as nice as we get the good privilege to here. Good push from Davis Trask. No limitations on bump draft in the virtual series, and these guys are using it to its fullest.
No way those air conditioning vents stay that shiny in a real race car, but they look good in these conditions with nice glow in the sky, but getting darker as we go along. Trask now back in that slipstream on Alfano. These guys maybe able to catch Kowalczyk, who's not too far up ahead of them. Ooh, if you're gonna bump, it's got to be square on. You got to make sure it's square.
In the NASCAR world, they'll tell you to hit on the right side because they got all that positive camber in them and all that weird setups. But yeah, I think in a road car you want to hit in the middle, and they're feeling the effects of that. That was pretty loose through the tri-oval.
Yeah, this car's got, for the most part, relatively symmetrical suspension. So it's not perfectly symmetrical. What am I seeing here? Spring perch offset of, I'll put this into our freedom units. 1.3 inches on the left front, but 1.5 on the right front.
Yeah. Who knows what's going on in this thing, man?
And 2.3 inches in the left rear and 2.5 in the right rear. So I don't think the corner weight is quite right.
Yeah, a little crooked, but at least in these things you don't have to worry about your own driver weight having an impact.
That's true.
6-foot gang over here would like to have a standardized driver's weight. And that looks like Sean Saputra we're seeing now. Sean Saputra and Bill Salen. Oh no! It was Will Salen. I said the name and then spun around. Oh, that's Will. Sorry, that's Will Nonamaker. My bad. I was looking at Will Salen in the other Salen's car, and he spun it around. Will Nonamaker keeps pointing the right way. And he's having a good little battle, despite a little bit of damage on that car from the first lap. He's having a fun little battle here with Patrick Cummings for what looks like 27th and 28th place.
This is the we've both been through pit lane twice gang battle.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
bad gear shift.
Yeah. Oh. I don't know. I don't know about that one.
I think Cummings has very strong opinions about people trying to pass below the double yellow line.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, it's allowed in the in the road course, and he's pretty lucky that there's a lot of pavement runoff there. And Nonamaker's done a lot to hold on to it, keep it straight. And the team cars benefited as Alan Wells goes by, as well as Sean Saputra, while Patrick Cummings is facing the wrong way.
Albert in thirds also had a rough run somewhere around this lap, so him and Federation need to be careful that the leading duo don't get away. And the leading duo might think now's a good time to try and get away. So see how Soto reacts to that.
Just looking at the footage, it looks like Federici took his usual line. He really dives into turn number one a lot faster than the other guys. And in doing so, he surprised Alex up the inside and tagged him just a little bit, enough that Alex lost some on the exit, and that put the gap between them. Alex is lifted off now, and it looks like he wants to give Dennis a push on the way in and maybe learn a little bit as they go into turn number one here. See what the secrets are.
It's tandem drafting. McCormick and Soto, Federici and Albert.
That was a silly year in NASCAR, yeah.
Oh, well, it's back, baby, but only on the banking, not in the infield, thankfully.
And Hall is making a run. Looks like he's benefiting from a little bit of draft of the lap car ahead. That's Garrett Meyer ahead of him, lap down, running in 25th, but he's gone and run. Sorry, no, I've got this all kinds of backwards. Hurley is following Garrett Meyer ahead, and Hall has managed to pull a big chunk out of Hurley last time by, and that's sort of the back half of the top five. Hurley is making ground up, trying to catch Hall. Sorry, catch Hurley. Oh my gosh, too many H's in that group.
Just a couple minutes away from the halfway point of the race, and I think we're starting to see a little more activity on that pit road with Tim Wire and Aaron Thorpe stopping. Might get more of the leaders in just the next couple of laps. 7 gallons only takes you so far.
Yeah. And for those wondering about the love racing, we're hearing in the chat that looks like the computer didn't like the day-night transition, and of course we're getting to see the lovely sunset, but it is a little bit more demanding than usual on the hardware when we go through the night. Daytona's got plenty of big stands that can be hard on the computer as well.
So watch. Top 4 staying out, yeah.
I was going to say, just watch the replay there. That looked like, was that Alfano? And Alfano ended up the wrong way as he and Trask went too wide into, I think that was he and Trask. It might have been he and Kowalczyk. Either way, Kowalczyk's diving down into the pits from 7th. He'll be one of our first leading pack guys to take a scheduled stop.
Justin Hall as well.
Yeah, Hall's decided that it's time for him too. With
at least right side tires there.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see if there's 4 tires, and it looks like the other side's gone up as well.
Could be 4, could be just the rears, not sure, but the pit stop ongoing and ends at 25 seconds. It looks like the tires were the deciding factor on that, based on the fact that he, jumped out of the pit box the minute the car dropped down off the jacks. So not waiting on the fuel, but I think waiting on the tires there. 23 seconds for Kowalczyk. It was 23 for Wire as well. So it might be just a little bit of a longer pit stop if you want to change the tires, but not much more.
McCormick and Soto still running real close together up at the front.
Oh, Hall has looped it on the cold tires out of the pits.
Oh,
just like last year.
Classic mistake. Yeah. Unfortunately for him, hate to do it twice, but yeah, he's come out of the pits and it's just gotten away from him in the rear end there.
Leaders closing in on themselves again this time. Federici has been able to bridge the gap to the leaders, and all 4 of them past pit entry. One of Salen's cars coming in, probably Bill Salen.
Yeah, coming in, and I think they saw him coming in a little bit slow. They didn't like the look of that and decided to push it one more lap.
Albert diving it into one has caught Federici So our top 4 running more closely together again. Hurley pits from 5th. Trask from, it was 6th or 7th.
Albert's learned something in turn 1 there. That was a great sector for him.
I'm seeing tyre changes for Hurley. Where's, not sure about Trask. Kruger and Alfano pitting as well.
Actually not seeing tires for Trask so far.
Or now I am for Kruger. That outside jackman takes a little moment to get into position, doesn't he?
Yeah, and actually Hurley's gone and saved himself a few seconds by the looks of things by only doing 2. So that's a little curious. Be something going on there. We'll see how that pans out.
Trask 20-second stop. So there's some different stuff going on there for this, setting us up for this back half of the race.
Yeah, definitely some different options available for folks. Cold tires is going to really be a factor in the second stint as the sun's going down and track temps are rapidly declining. You're seeing cars taking evasive accident. That was Andre Jameson, all 4 tires off across the grass, dodging Bill Salen there as he's limping it around by the looks of things on cold tires. Maybe a little bit of damage on that car.
Race onto pit road for our top 4, all of them looking to slow down to 88 kilometers an hour, 55 miles an hour together, and Albert a little more daring than Federation ends up using that beautiful wide pit lane that Daytona offers us.
And no pit lane speed limiter on these cars, so if you're willing to push your luck a little bit, as Alex Albert was, and he's pushed it too far, slides past his spot. So he'll pay a little price for that, but he gained a bit coming down the pit lane.
Now, I see first and second getting some tyre attention. I think I'm seeing right from McCormick, who's out of there now, potentially rears from Soto, nothing from Albert. I didn't quite have my Shea Adam eyes on to watch 4 cars on pit lane at once for what Federation did, but my goodness, some differences there with 20-second stop for McCormick, 22 for Soto, 20 for Albert, but he overshot on the way in, 22 for Federation. Who's going to have a difficult outlap and who's going to have the grip for the rest of the way?
Yeah, no tires for Federation either. So in theory, the 2 of them might have the advantage for the first lap or so here while the other tires are coming in with how cold it is out. And it's busy ahead.
2-second lead, yeah.
And it's Alan Wells struggling a little bit with the cold tires as well. I think he was in a lap down, but on the pits. Soto drifting it through turn 7 on those cold tires. So Alex Albert's just sticking to the road, no problems at all for him. And Mark McCormick's pulled a masterstroke on that pit exit. He's getting a whole lot of time on all of them somehow.
Wells looking to stay out of the way. Soto still trying to get that tyre warm up, needs to be pretty careful, but he's got Albert and Federation breathing down his neck, and Albert jumps out of it there. Doesn't want to follow directly behind Soto. So Soto might be in for a tough lap here, but have a little more grip at the end of the race. So that's always the compromise you've got to make.
Well, and Albert was one of the lighter fuelers. It's possible he thinks, following is better than leading for him at this point in the race. Either that or he wants to be the 3rd car on the train and make this a real super bump draft as they push up to oh no.
What?
2 penalties, speeding penalties. Alex Albert was pushing the limit. Oh, that's painful. And Josh Soto and Alex Albert. Soto points leader, Albert 3rd in the points, and the 2 of them make another trip down the pit lane. That could be pivotal for the points race.
Well, if it was speeding on pit lane, it must have been speeding after their pit box or an unsafe pit exit, because if it was speeding on the way in, they just would have been held longer at their pit stop. So both of them
It's a 30
We'll,
second.
we'll wind back and we kind of know where to look and maybe what to look for.
But that hasn't been a 30-second stop and hold for Alex Albert. So what is that? He's only stopped for 15 seconds.
Soto still being out. Neither of them took a drive through. Both of them went to their pit boxes.
10-second stop and hold? Oh, whoa. And that's gotten real exciting for Alex Albert as he's exited the pit lane. Dodges a car. Very curious. We'll have to maybe find out what that one was all about.
I'm stumped on it, and it really opens up the front of this race. McCormick out to a almost 4-second lead over Dennis Federation. And then Hurley back into the top 3 with that. Davis Trask, Justin Hall, Orlando Herrell. Cormac going up high on the banking to make that pass, but yeah, Hall, now the pit stops are done, finding himself in 5th place. Albert's rejoined and just passed Tim Wire for 7th.
I've gone and done some sleuthing down the pit lane there, and it sounds like a speeding penalty on exit is 15-second stop and hold, and sure enough, that was the case for Alex Albert and Josh Soto on the exit there. Both of them forgetting that the slow zone doesn't end at the end of the pit lane; it continues around the corner nowadays, and getting caught on the exit. So major championship implications there, as well as major implications for this race, as Mark McCormick now in free air with 4.5 seconds back to Dennis Federation and then 20 back to John Hurley.
Soto was the points leader, and now McCormick gets to start to walk away with this a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So we'll be watching the back half of the top 5 by the looks of things, with the way all those folks have shaken out.
Yeah, Kyle Robertson looks to be closing in on the top 10 though here, so relatively short stop, went a bit deeper into the race with it, and now he's up behind Kruger and Alfano.
A solid qualifying effort for him, 12th, but really seeming to have a little bit more grip at this point in the race, based on how he's driving through the horseshoes right now, or at least a little cooler tires. Oh, it makes a little look up the inside there. Mark Kruger slams the door on turn number 7. Kruger's lighting it up a little bit though as they come onto the banking. And Robertson will have the draft as they head down towards the bus stop and through turns 3, 1, and 2 right here, NASCAR 1 and 2. Robertson, a Florida native. And good buddies with Andre Jameson and Garrett Meyer, who we've already seen on the broadcast tonight, crewing for the Palm Tree Racing Porsche 944. Spend more time doing autocross than ChampCar though, but out here racing and hoping that he can change some of that.
Looking around the outside of Kruger. On the banking at the start-finish line. It's the long way around from there, and just looking to cut over underneath, but does not do it.
Kruger does well to hold up the inside there. There is that kind of inside straight line that you can take that kind of flattens out the banking a little bit, lets you brake a little deeper, but it can be tough to get the car churning at the same time as you're braking when you're doing that line, and Kruger's kind of nailed it up the inside this time.
And the two of them still keeping in touch with Alfano, which surprises me as Kruger roasts those tyres. And this is why Robertson seems a little impatient. He's going to look to the inside just here.
Trying to get a little side draft action here. Oh, I think he's not nailed the shift quite as well as Kruger has, though. These cars are actually pretty sensitive to the shift point. The peak horsepower actually being relatively low in the RPM compared to a lot of other cars on the service. So if you're over revving it by a few hundred RPM, you'll actually lose time in the straights. And it takes a good bit of practice to know exactly when the right note of the motor is, or the right number on your dash, depending on how you got things set up, to know when to shift. Of course, being on a monitor, a lot of times you're kind of sacrificing some of that vision of the dash so that you can see a little bit more out the window. We are starting to see Justin Hall and Orlando Harrell here. Just got those two up on screen on the back half of the top five, getting kind of close together. Justin makes a nice little chunk of time up in the first sector, and a little bit more. Oh, sorry, I'm getting that wrong again. Justin's just gotten passed by Orlando Harrell, sorry. But he's trying to make some ground back up. He dives it a little deep into the International Horseshoe, unfortunately for him.
And the both of them getting caught by Alex Albert and Tim Wire, who are in the back of shot here as well. Albert obviously pressing on, trying to catch back up after the penalty on the pit lane.
Mm-hmm. The difference between first and seventh is pretty big, but the difference between first and second or third is not quite so painful. And it will be interesting to see up front with Federici, having been in the draft for as long as he was, what the fuel calculations have done with the draft pack more or less out the window, and running kind of equal laps with McCormick, but 4.5 seconds behind him.
Yeah, you've got a very different complexion of the first half and second half of the race for some of those guys. The first half, the track was hot, the air was hot, the sun was out, and you were in the slipstream, in the draft packs. And then the second half, you're a little more lonely with a track that's cooler, air that's cooler. All of those things go together to burning quite a bit more fuel. So if you weren't planning on it, and you short-filled a little bit, or expected the second half of the race to look the same as the first, you might be having a soft pedal a little bit. We know McCormick's not, because he's a 10th away from his fastest lap of the race.
Federici trying to make his way past some lap traffic here. This is Dustin Busch he's got on the outside as they dive down in the second horseshoe. Busch gives up the inside line, though. Gives up the inside line. And he'll be riding along in the draft there for a little bit, I think, trying to learn something as someone comes by. Nice thing about racing in the iRacing series, one of the many nice things, I mean, you get to hang out with all the guys, you get to chat at, $3,000 in prizes for the season, but you also get the chance to see what really fast guys are doing in cars that are identical to you. And that experience cannot be understated. It's the reason that a lot of ChampCar teams will put professional or semi-professional drivers in the car just to see what they're really capable of. Well, you've got plenty of examples ahead of you in the iRacing series that can show you what all of these cars are capable of.
We have neglected to mention some of those prizes in this broadcast. So $1,500 of ChampCar credit to the season champion. And then what have we got? $250 for the random draw at the end of this first 4 rounds, again for the next 4, and then for the final 4 of the 12-round sprint championship. Got $150 for the enduro race winners, each winner. That was 4 of them, and 1 for the champion. and maybe more news on that front later as well. So lots and lots of ways to win, not just for the overall champion. Jevin, did you do enough sleuthing to maybe guess at how many drivers are in the running for that first random draw?
I don't have a count of them just yet. Will depend a little bit on who all showed up. But if I was ballparking it, I'd say around 20 drivers ought to have qualified, which is pretty good odds for your shot at 250 champ bucks. Knock some money off the cost of your next race entry. Or the next seat rental that you do. Of course, ChampCar has plenty of arrive and drive teams for folks that are interested in dipping their toes into the world of wheel-to-wheel endurance racing. And if you're curious about those endurance prizes, we'll be putting up a post shortly about the first endurance round. Our next race will be an endurance round on April 15th. That's a Saturday at the Summit Point Motorsports Park. And we'll be featuring that Toyota GR86 in that round. So it'll be a weekend race, and it'll be with a friend. And so bring along a teammate, bring along a friend, and we'll have some busy action, I imagine, for the whole field as we watch on the broadcast Alex Albert making a move on Orlando Harrell, taking away that 5th position that he was holding on to, and Alex has his eyes set forward onto Justin Hall, I have to think.
Yeah, I think Albert might drag those two up towards Justin Hall, and there's still enough time left for them to maybe all close in on Davis Trask as well. So this will be an exciting part of the race in the back part here. Reflections from the lights in the sunset on Lake Lloyd. If my credit card didn't get declined, I should have booked some fireworks for the checkered flag here as well, finishing at night at Daytona.
They're real cheap down in the United States, so that's what I know.
I've been told they have unrestricted freedom, so said the packaging on some of the fireworks I inspected in Florida. So, yeah, you can get yourself a deal any time of the year.
Ooh, and Alex Albert.
Messy in towards that turn 1, isn't it?
Yeah, Alex Albert was peeking on the outside. I think he likes to kind of make that outside move going into turn number 1. We've seen it a couple times from him tonight. But he's definitely putting the pressure on Justin Hall. And kind of interesting because Alex didn't take any tires at the stop, but definitely seems to have a little bit of pace in hand at this point.
Definitely pressuring. Not looking to pass into the horseshoe. Hall, oh, how wide? Very wide. Almost touching the grass, and if he had, he would have been in a world of trouble out there.
Yeah, that camber drops away from the track on the outside of the corner there, and it's a one-way trip to the barrier once you dip 2 tires off. Oh, Tim Wire spun him up a little bit on the exit of 7 that time. He'll give up some time going onto the banking, and that could be critical time for him because he needs to get past these 2 pretty quickly here with only 10 minutes to go, as things all of a sudden reach kind of the almost the conclusion here. We're getting close to the end.
Yeah, it's home stretch, 4-way fight amongst this group. You can't keep Mark Kruger and Kyle Robertson apart, and they are starting to maybe claw towards Davis Trask, but only if they can put a pause on fighting each other for a lap or 2, which not looking super likely.
Alex Albert will benefit, of course, from the draft of Charles and Greg lapped cars ahead of him. Charles Brown and Greg Vandert, rather, ahead of him. But he will also perhaps suffer from the 2 of them if they decide to get battling as we head into the infield here. So this will be a pretty significant thing. They're too wide, and they're way offline there. They got real close, and they're diving out of the way, so at least they're honoring the blue flags a little bit, but there's a whole lot of traffic that needs to get through this pair of lapped cars.
Yeah, Hall's got himself sandwiched a little bit with where he's ended up placed, and the same is true for Orlando Harrell. Vandervert gets out of the way, and yeah, Harrell and Wire go through.
Yeah, and they'll be too wide into the kink, but I think Charles, seeing that his competition has left him, has decided that he no longer needs to push that hard while the leaders are coming through. We did have a little moment there. Orlando Harrell seemed to blink out of existence, so we'll keep an eye on that. Cars disappear, of course, when their internet connection is a little bit unstable. Here's hoping it stays stable till the end of the race for him. And our pack of 4 is back to being just a pack of 4 again.
It'll depend if Albert's broken away on this. 1.6 seconds ahead of Justin Hall. You can almost close that down. It's, big boxy cars at high speed on the banking here.
Yeah, 1.5, 1.6. That's kind of the edge of the range.
But if Harold wants to bump him along, they can do it. But Harold's looking around.
Real deep for Justin Hall, but he's really kind of nailed it, I think, that time through the bus stop. I bet he gets a little bit of a run here.
Harold dangerously close to having cut one of the apexes in the bus stop there. Drops back. He might have done it. Wire goes past.
And Alex has managed to hold on 1.8 seconds as they come off of turn 4. And I think that'll be just enough to hold Justin off if he gets turn number 1 right as well. And he's still looking ahead because there's one lapped car, not even, one car up the road that he'd still like to pass, and that's Davis Trask, another 4 seconds up. But last time by, Trask, who's having a hell of a race for himself, it must be said, up 15 positions after qualifying, 19th, running 4th currently. But unfortunately for him, he might have taken the best out of his tires, running a 2:03.8 last time by, while Alex Albert ran a 2:02.6.
4 laps to go in this one is the count right now, and Mark McCormick's still just been massaging his lead that was 3 or 4 seconds after the pit stops out to a 7-second lead on Dennis Federation. John Hurley quietly in 3rd.
I was going to say, Mark McCormick, you might have noticed the DeWalt car spinning and sliding up towards the wall. Patrick Cummings kept it out of the wall. He's 6 laps down, running in 26th place. But anyway, back to our leaders.
Yeah, and then Davis Trask also, like we said, has found himself up in 4th place after Joshua Soto and Alex Albert got penalties for speeding on pit lane.
Yeah, Alex is making up ground every corner, though. He's down to 2.5 seconds back, so he's made up almost another 1.5 seconds this lap. And then screwed up the bus stop because I talked about it, and back to 3.5 seconds. So he'll have to keep it clean through the next 5 minutes if he wants to have a chance.
Here comes Justin Hall with a little more speed, hooking onto the slipstream.
Yeah, and he's firmly in the slipstream with almost within a second as they cross the line. Ooh. John. A few little bits of drama here at the end of the race for folks. Always tough as the sun goes down. You start to see your braking markers change a little bit,
Interesting time for Drive Trainer Motorsports because Robertson's closing in on Tony Alfano. The guys Bo Sewin and Garrett Meyer look to have united. Sutra on the lane for a second time.
And Alfano has pinched Robertson in really tight, but Robertson held the inside and then spun it up on the exit. Oh, that hurts. And he's gone and given up a spot now to Mark Kruger. So from nearly in 9th to running in 11th in the span of one exit. That battle's not quite done yet. And Orlando Harrell and Tim Wire are just ahead of them, running 7th and 8th. Have had a little bit of excitement through turn number 7. The two of them were running side by side, but Tim Wire kind of did the same thing as Robertson and got a little loose as they were accelerating. We'll see, though. Wire will have the the draft as they exit the bus stop this time, and we'll see if that's enough to propel him around Orlando. Really good line from him, but really loose through the middle. That thing was sliding the whole way. Meyer's done a lot, though, on this recovery drive. Dodged a lot on the first lap, and now running 8th after qualifying 9th.
He's hunting and he's looking and he's searching. Harrell goes up high pretty early and sort of offers it up to Wire. 2 more to go. So it starts getting pretty interesting shortly. Wire would have won the little drag race to the line off the bus stop if that was the last lap. So they'll keep that in mind and try to save that knowledge for the last lap.
Yeah. And for those keeping score, Alex Albert has not quite managed to make up any ground on Davis Trask. In fact, he's just barely holding off Justin Hall, getting a little bit of help from Hall as Hall makes a mistake on the exit that time of the first horseshoe. But Albert's hopes of Trask overtaking Trask for 4th place are starting to fade rapidly unless Trask makes a mistake here on the last lap, second to last lap.
Like Kruger and Robertson. Oh, Kruger lights up the rears. Great battle there, but they've been swapping back and forth a little there, and I think they've both got Alfano this time.
Alfano makes a nice move there, though, from outside to inside, and he's up the inside of Robertson now, and he'll have the draft from Harrell or from Kruger ahead as well. This is good stuff.
They'll fight that out all the way to the end. The leader has started the final lap. These guys were obviously still about half a lap away from that. So they've got a couple more chances to all sort it out and put it all on the line. Kruger so wide through the middle of the bus stop that Alfano and Robertson will get back around him again, and he'll have to do it all again on the final lap, if indeed he even can stay with the toe. He can.
But it's probably time that we check back in on the leader as Mark McCormick comes out of turn number 7 and onto the banking through Daytona 1 and 2, and barring some sort of announcer-induced tragedy here, he'll be rolling that number 1 car, number 1 because he is the reigning champion, and number 1 today because he did it better than anyone else. No speeding penalties, no mistakes, led from start almost all the way to the finish. I believe this may have nearly been a perfect race, but he takes it perfectly through the bus stop one more time. He held off Dennis Federici and not only turned that 4-second gap into a 7-second gap, he maintained and continued running low 202s all the way through the second half of this race. And Mark McCormick, driving it onto the front straight, claims the second victory of his season and the first driver to get 2 wins this year in the ChampCar iRacing series. We'll have to see how the points are looking after this.
And you too can do it. All you've got to do is support an Australian-produced kids cartoon on your Mustang. Federici to second. Hurley still a while away back in third. And Wyatt, Harrell, Alfano, Robertson, Kruger, all to be decided on this final lap.
Yeah, they got the fireworks in the background there as Robertson and Alfano go into the bus stop this time. And Mark Kruger got really sketchy close to him too as they were going into the bus stop. Things are kicking off on the back half of the top 10 as they fight over 8th place real hard to the line. Robertson's going to have the draft through 3 and 4, and he'll kick out wide, side drafting on Alfano. as we watch the rest of the top 10 kind of sort themselves out. Hurley 4th, Alex 5th, Hall 6th, Wire 7th, and we'll see Alfano or Robertson. Alfano or Robertson. Robertson coming around the outside. Not enough. Alfano holds on to it for 9th place, and Robertson keeps the foot to the floor. He'll just do another lap on the oval.
Yeah, you kind of do actually need to be careful doing that. But Tony Alfano, even though he didn't have the speed, he had the low line and the short run to the checkered flag, and that let him hold on to that 9th ahead of Robertson and Kruger.
And as you're seeing the drivers engage in the celebratory demolition derby, you'll notice that this car also has the new damage model. Particles and smoke and bent panels showing up all over the place.
And behind all of that, Joshua Soto finished in 12th after serving his penalty, so he wasn't able to recover quite as much as his early pace, and front row qualifying pace suggested. So Mark McCormick with the win, Dennis Federation and John Hurley completing that podium from Davis Trask, one of the big movers of the race, and then Albert Hall, Wire, Harrell, Alfano, and Robertson, and Kruger there in 11th from Soto. Sean Saputra in 13th, had 2 trips through the lane, and Garrett Meyer, Bowie Sewin, James Smith, Dustin Besh, Alan Wells, Charles Brown, and David Warden as the top 20. How deep do points go again? Because we did get lots of finishes with Greg Vandervert, Will Nonamaker, Andre Jameson, Bill Salin, Lee Morleman, Michael Thorne, Patrick Cummings, and I think Charles Kowalczyk would be the last scored finisher. From retirements, Aaron Thorpe, Darren McNeil Jr., Nick Love, Jason Fianek, and Ben Sandberg.
Yeah, and we're still tabulating things here. I'll give you an update on the points after we see if we can get a hold of our podium. But it does look, doing the early math, like things have gotten shaken up, certainly in the top 5 here.
Right, let's get to our podium then, because all 3 of them are standing by, and I love to go 3, 2, 1, so I'm going to grab our 3rd place sitter, John Hurley, who's going to join us. How was your race, mate?
Well, it was a lot better than the practice race, that's for sure. I had a good time out there.
We had this sort of 6-way tussle in the early part of the race, and it looked like from there, consistency and no mistakes was going to be very important.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we were kind of pacing a little bit up there, and that was helping me out because ultimately I think they still had a little bit of pace on me, so the draft was helping me. But then I got I missed a shift going into the bus stop of all places and couldn't get the car to rotate and caught a slowdown, and then that was it. Then I dropped back immediately.
Yeah, so important to go with the pack. Our first race this season in this Mustang, and it is a little different to all the other cars.
It is a little bit different, especially on a cold set of tires. I think it's right now the most sensitive on a cold set, even more than those front-wheel drive cars were. But still, just a blast to drive and kind of everything that a Champ car is. You know, it's a little hard to shift. They move around a little bit, and they're good fun to drive.
You wish you had tires about 100 mil wider.
Yeah, a little extra tire would help. And what I noticed for myself is, I do have a tendency to kind of overdrive the car a bit, and I'll heat up the tires, and that'll show up in the lap time.
Well, congrats on that 3rd place, and we'll catch you around.
Yeah. Hey, and anybody that's watching this, hey, remember, we've got the BOD has put up the petitions for everybody to look over for next season. So we don't get a lot of participation. So please be pushing that we get a little bit more participation with that going forward. So we make our real racing as good as we possibly can. So it's more like this iRacing.
It looked like there
Alrighty.
were some fun ones on the petition list this year too, as I was reading through them.
Yeah, definitely some good stuff out there.
It's John Hurley, our third place man. Devon, I don't think either of us have ever spoke to him. Let's get Dennis Federation.
Yeah, I've dragged Dennis up into the booth here. I think a first time for you, Dennis. Congratulations. Dennis? You there?
Do you hear me?
We got you. I was wondering if you're just a little camera shy.
My bad. No, I was saying I was a first place loser once again.
hey, there's worse places to be. And honestly, it didn't look like a sure thing in the first half. It looked like you're maybe struggling a little bit to kind of keep up with that lead pack in the first half.
I just don't know Daytona that well. Honestly, during practice, I was watching people's laps just to see where the lines were and everything, and I learned a bit from that. But near the end, I got it down, but I stopped pushing after the pit stop just because I knew I wouldn't catch Mark. But
well, you were certainly a quick learner there. You were putting down some really solid laps by the end, and a great finish for you.
Yeah, it wasn't my cleanest of races. I tapped a couple people just very lightly. There was 0 X's, but still rather not have that happen.
Well, a really solid effort and a big move in the points for you too. I think as well. By my napkin math, that puts you all the way up to 7th place in the points, and I think you've only done 2 races with us so far.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I won't be doing many more races over the summer because I'll be away from my sim rig for a while. So that'll suck, but I'll race when I can.
Well, sorry to hear that, but congratulations on a solid performance tonight. Anyone you needed to thank?
The Hungry Geckos racing team: Christian Peeler, Pat, Andy Walker. We have an E30 that we race, but hopefully we'll get it running soon.
Yeah, we were chatting about that on the broadcast. I hope you folks managed to get it back together too, because you showed you got some real legitimate pace out there tonight.
Yeah, our car in real life has the pace to win, and we have the drivers for it, but we just keep on getting unlucky. So hopefully we can get that working soon.
Well, cheers, buddy. Till the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we get to move one step further up the podium, Devon, and I reckon you can do this.
Well, it's a long climb up to the top of the podium, but this this guy, the guy I just dragged in right now, is very familiar with the top step of the podium. How's it going, Mark McCormick?
Pretty good. Another win.
Yeah, first guy to get to 2 wins today. And I got to think that it's because you put Bluey on the car, right?
Bluey is my spirit animal. I've seen every episode of Bluey, I think, over 9,000 times. So I'm very familiar. And yeah, I mean, the guys behind were in a big group the whole time, and I just knew from the very start that there was no way that I was going to be able to get away on merit. So they allowed me to save. I was saving a pretty hefty chunk and was able to maintain. And then last 15 minutes, man, I was like, wait a second. I have enough fuel to just hammer down the whole way. I don't even need to save anymore. So kind of boring in the second half, but the first half was pretty nuts, pretty intense.
Yeah, we were really enjoying the pack racing up there, and then all of a sudden your pack kind of melted away at the pit stop. What was going through your head as you saw those two peeling off after your pit stops, after the first pit stop?
Yeah, when we came out of the pits, I had, I think, a second, like under 2 seconds, and I was like, okay, maybe I can get away. But then I was quickly putting on tents, even though I wasn't really having a great outlap. And then Soto disappeared, and I guess he had a speeding in the pits or something. So that's pretty unfortunate because I don't really know why his pit was slower than mine. Maybe he was just frazzled from the speeding penalty.
Well, that's a solid way to put a stamp on it for you, and really making sure that you're making the races you can show up to count.
Yeah, for sure. As you know, with the kids and all, sometimes I don't get to make it to every round, but gotta, yeah, like you said, make it to the ones I can, make them count.
Well, great job out there tonight, and as I said, nearly a perfect race. I think qualified on pole, led every single lap, I think, nearly, if not all of them, and took home the win.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky with that pole lap, to be honest. I had a really great toe, and I figured nobody would touch it, so I just hit up Soto. I was like, hey, you want to see if we can get a 2-minute? And I almost had it, but I 1x the bus stop, so womp womp.
Well, great job out there. Got to thank the usual people tonight.
Yes, sir. The best and brightest. Thanks to you guys for putting this on, and I'll catch you at the next round.
Pleasure to be here and pleasure to watch you do such good things on the track, man. See ya.
Later.
Great to hear from all of our podium, Devon, and great to have another great grid of 35 drivers out at Daytona in the Mustangs. Our podium again, McCormick, Federation, and John Hurley. If you want to join us on the grid, go to forum.champcar.org. All the information on how to get on iRacing, how to get on the league, and come racing with us. And the next championship round could be a 4-hour team enduro in the Toyota GR86 at Summit Point Motorsports Park, April 15. Straight up prize money on the win for that one. So going to be very, very exciting and looking forward to that one. Forum.champcar.org. Join us for any of the coming rounds. More great prizes to be given away later in the championship. More news to come, and never too late to join, because there is still a whole heap of great racing, great community, and great prizes to come for the rest of the year. Devon, any closing thoughts from Daytona?
Well, I'll give you a quick rundown on the points. After that mix-up at the top, Mark McCormick, with only 3 races ran, is still in 3rd place. And Josh Soto, no longer the points leader. That's right, it's Alex Albert who holds on to the lead in the points after managing to drive his way back up to 5th place on that one. So still some twists and turns left, I'd say, in this season.
Fantastic. 4 races run. We've got a prize to draw later on from that one. And yeah, great racing still to come. Thanks for joining us on HJBC from Daytona. Another great round of the Champ Car iRacing series. See you April 15 at Summit Point.